So there's this man, his name is Dr. Ricardo Castañón. He was born in Bolivia, became a physician. He is an accomplished neuropsychophysiologist, which basically means he is an expert in relating the physical and chemical activities of the brain to our behavior. So how our brain and how we think and how that all works translates into how we live, how we behave. Dr. Castañón was an atheist, and he was a scientist, and as a result of his training, he said that basically all the intelligent people, and most of the intelligent people that he met were atheists. And so he just thought, yeah, that's how life is, that's how the world is. And in 1999, Dr. Castañón received an invitation after spending his entire life as a pretty staunch atheist. In 1999, Dr. Castañón received an invitation to look through a microscope. And it changed his life forever. We believe that at every Mass, you know this, at every Mass, that the bread and wine, by the power of the Holy Spirit working through the priest, it actually becomes Jesus himself. This is the last thing. It's a little long last thing, but it's the last thing still. It becomes Jesus himself. It's not a symbol of Jesus, it actually is Jesus. And so here's Jesus himself who comes to us in our treacherous hearts, and he gives us his sacred heart. In fact, this is crazy. Over the course of years, every Mass, Jesus is truly present, right? In every Mass, bread and wine become his body, blood, soul, and divinity. But in some Masses, over the course of the last 1,500 years, there have been some incredible things that have happened. A miracle has taken place. In 750 AD, there was a miracle in Lanciano, Italy, where as a priest was offering Mass, the host became flesh, actual flesh, and the wine became actual blood. You can see it in Lanciano, Italy right now. They've been done scientific experiments on it in the 1970s and 1980s. There have been other places in Poland in the 2000s and Mexico in the 2000s. But also there was a place called Buenos Aires in Argentina in 1996. There was a host that was found in the back of the church. Someone had dropped it. And so this woman said, "Father, here's the host." And so he picked up the host and he put it in a container of water. Because what you do, if the host is discarded, you put it in a container of water and put it in the tabernacle, lock it up, and then what happens is after a number of days it dissolves, it ceases to be the Eucharist, and then you can pour it into sacred ground, or you can pour it into the earth. After a few days, they opened up the tabernacle and they saw that this host appeared to be bleeding. And so he reported to his bishop, Archbishop Bergoglio, who now is Pope Francis. And the Archbishop said, okay, well, keep it safe a little longer. So for a month, it was just in this water, and it continued to transform from bread into what looked like blood and flesh. And so after a month, they put it in distilled water for 3 years, kept it locked up. And after 3 years in 1999, they called Dr. Ricardo Castañón, who is a neuropsychophysiologist, to lead a team of scientists and physicians to examine what this is. At one point, Dr. Castañón put a sample of whatever this was and brought it to New York City to a team of physicians. And one of these physicians was a guy named Dr. Frederick Zugaba, who is a well-known cardiologist and forensic pathologist with over 100 professional and scientifically vetted journals, publications, as well as being a full fellow of the American College of Cardiology. When he was filmed analyzing the substance, he looked through a microscope and he concluded immediately that this was real flesh and real blood containing human DNA. He said, he looked at it for a while, studied it, and as a forensic pathologist and cardiologist, he says, I'm an expert in this. He says, I can tell you exactly what this is. He said, the flesh is part of the muscle of the heart found on the wall of the left ventricle. It's the muscle that gives the heart its beat and the body its life. So here's this man who has no idea what this is, what he's looking at. All he knows is he's looking at a sample. Please identify this. They didn't want to bias his response. And he says, I can tell you exactly what this is. This is a human muscle from a human heart in the left ventricle that pumps out oxygenated blood for the rest of the body. He goes on, he says, I can see infiltrated through this tissue white blood cells, and that tells me two things. That this heart was alive at the moment this sample was taken, because white blood cells die outside of a living organism. And secondly, he says also, these white blood cells, they go to address injury. And so this heart has suffered. This is the sort of thing I see in patients who have been in a car accident, have been having a heart attack, or have been beaten around the chest. There's a lawyer and there's a journalist there, and they said, how long can white blood cells live outside of a living tissue? And he said, only for a few minutes. And they said, well, this sample was in tap water for a month and then was in distilled water for 3 years leading up to this moment. And Dr. Zugaba looked and said, there is no scientific explanation for that. The white blood cells should die within minutes, if not hours. And it was only then that they told him that the sample actually came from a consecrated host at a Catholic Mass. And he said, I have no scientific explanation for this. You know, Dr. Ricardo Castagnon, he compared this with the other scientific examinations of Lanciano, Italy, from 750 AD, from Poland, from Mexico, from the other Eucharistic miracles around the world. And that day he looked through a microscope after having been convinced that his own heart was unlovable, after having been convinced that there was no one out there to love his treacherous heart. But he looked through a microscope and became convinced that what he was looking at was the heart of Jesus. It's the heart of God himself. He is now a practicing Catholic who has said so many times, if we just realized, if we had any idea of who it is in the Eucharist, that this is the heart of our God, the faithful heart that comes to meet our faithless hearts. This powerful heart that comes to meet our weak heart, this heart that's been beaten to come meet our broken hearts. This Eucharistic and trustworthy heart that comes to abide in our treacherous hearts.